Welcome to TMI with Teryl and Martha. I'm Martha Zoller, and
I'm Teryl Worcester.
this week we're going to talk about anti-aging. Do we want to fight it, or is it just something that's natural? We'll talk about it with Teryl. Teryl, this is kind of up your wheelhouse.
Right.
So let's talk about that, but I got a lot of thoughts about anti-aging.
I will be happy to hear those thoughts because I also have a lot of thoughts. And I guarantee you, people out there probably have a lot of thoughts on anti-aging. It's a pretty tricky subject, isn't it, ladies? Gentlemen, do you even discuss it? I mean, it's a question. Anyway, part of the reason the spas in the world exist are to combat aging. And my real question was, do we really want to fight aging? It's an inevitable process. We're all going there. What is the really honest to goodness best plan for aging? Part of the spa's reason for being there is the education to that purpose. What are your thoughts?
Well, and I think we have to separate aging from looks, okay? And we'll talk about looks later. But a lot of people associate, looks with whether you're aging well or not. And it could be completely different. I mean, there was the old, remember the Fernando Lamas joke that they did on SNL where, I may feel terrible, but I look marvelous. It's like you think you look great, but your body's falling apart because you're not taking care of it. So looks really kind of have to be separated from aging. What do you define as aging?
Well, I think that's kind of a hard thing to do. Most people don't realize, but your skin is your largest detox organ. It's an organ. I've had people come to the spa and not actually know that they put Vaseline on their skin or any kind of product on their skin, whether it's their face or their body. They have no idea that their kidneys, their liver, their detox organs have to basically work that out. So anything you put on your skin, you're actually eating. That has been the basis for a lot of the products that we carry at the spa. We used to have our own skincare line, and it was a beautiful line sourced from very clean products, nutritionally sound. You could actually eat them. Not that I would suggest doing that, but it did so much good for the skin. The problem comes when you get skincare products that are that good. They don't have a long shelf life. And so manufacturers of good skincare, even the highest quality you can find on the market now, have to manage that, because to mass produce, they've got to put products in there that may not pass the Yucca test or one of the other tests that are out there. But those products are there so that it can have some shelf life. I mean, I want shelf life. Do you want some shelf life?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I have dealt with for a very long time. I'm in a business where you're out there. I do not only radio, but I also do television. And I do color my hair. I don't mind saying that. I am never going to be gray, but also you don't see gray haired women on television. And so I've always had to think about how I look, but I also want to feel really good. And I think there's this challenge there. Now, my parents had fabulous skin. Okay, I owe my great skin to genetics. I moisturize every day, but I am a sun worshiper. I know you shouldn't admit to that, but I do love being in the sun. I don't burn very easily, but I do moisturize every day, twice a day, head to toe. That's something that I do. But the thing I've learned is that, and you may disagree with this, but it really doesn't matter how expensive the moisturizer is. If it's got A, C, and E in it, then it'll work pretty well for what you want to do. So it can be inexpensive, it can be expensive. The important thing, in my view, is that you do it on a regular basis. Moisturize. What do
Well,
you think about that?
I will give you my understanding. I'm not an expert in that field by any means, but I have been around a lot of experts in this field and people who are selling and making the product lines. One thing I learned that I did not know before I started managing the spa was that if the vitamins aren't encapsulated in the product, they're actually no longer there by the time you put it on your skin. But based on FDA standards, if it was in there when they started it and when they made the product, then they can put it on the label. Doesn't always mean that that's what you're receiving when you put it on your face. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I learned that the process of encapsulating vitamins was a very big deal when it comes to actually getting the benefit of those vitamins. So we've been teaching people that at the spa, especially the more unstable vitamins that are in skincare lines. They do really need to be protected in the bottle because things change over time. And depending on how long it sat on the shelf, it will vary in its effectiveness for your skin. Although, to your point, I have a mantra of in fitness or in skincare or in any kind of holistic healthcare, consistency beats it all, right? If you're consistent doing something that is healthy or you're seeing benefits from, because honestly, that's what we're looking for. When we own spas, we're looking for results. Everybody that comes in the door, whether they're getting a massage, a facial, a body treatment, seeing a naturopath, they're looking for results, right? So if you're using a product that someone else poo poos, but it's working for you, then go with it until it's not working for you. That's kind of the line I've asked all the estheticians to do at the spa on Green Street. When someone comes in, hi, why are you here today? Number one. Number two, what are you currently using on your skin? And number three, how's that working for you?
Would you say that the number one thing that people are concerned about is how their skin looks? I mean, obviously, weight's a whole nother thing that we'll talk about that people are concerned about. You might talk about how people dress, all that sort of thing. But is that the number one thing people are concerned about as far as how they look and how they age?
I think it's changed over time. I have seen lately in this selfie generation, all of you out there know what I'm talking about. But before the selfie generation, I think people were concerned about how they looked, but not to the level that they are now. As we have come through the last 20 years, I'd say that I've been a part of the spa, I've seen more and more pressure come upon younger and younger women to look a certain way. And when we opened the spa, and just for me in general, it was always a passion for me to teach people how to age gracefully. We're all aging. I mean, we're not getting out of it. We're going to die eventually. We have to deal with that too. We'll have a whole conversation about that at another time. But skin health actually is hugely important. And one of the big things that a lot of people don't understand, it really starts from the inside. Your liver really has the biggest part to play in the health of your skin.
And it's funny because don't you think that when you have this kind of emphasis on your skin, which I think we all do, we want to look
Mhm.
as good as we can look, but it's changed so much because with age and maturity, it's like I didn't realize how good I looked when I was 22. Okay, I looked good mostly when I woke up in the morning, when I went to bed at night. I needed very little maintenance. Okay, now it's a little bit different. And I think we don't appreciate, I think part of this aging process is appreciating where you are in the process.
Agreed, 100%.
Where are you in this process? So we need to do skin stuff and we want to do it as holistically as possible. Talk to people about it, do that kind of thing. I think that another area is how you feel. Because as you get older, I've had my knees replaced. Okay. That was something I had to do. I'm doing so much better. I'm like the poster child for knee replacement because I did all the things you should do after you get your knees replaced. I lost weight. I got in shape. I'm mobile. I'm doing all the things you need to do, which is important. So that's that exercise holistic side kind of balanced with the medical side, which is what I think we all need to do.
Well, Martha, I think that's a very smart outlook. One of the things that I have really focused on for myself as an aging woman, I will be 60 in January.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that is a good thing to say to somebody. A lot of people are afraid to talk about their age. but I think it's important to celebrate life. I was behind the scenes at a childhood cancer hospital. I know a lot of moms in there and a lot of children in there who would have loved to have the problem that we're having of how do we deal with aging. Those babies never got the chance. So, the most beautiful women that I've seen coming in and out of the spa have been the ones that inspired me. And those basically were the women here of Gainesville. Usually, I would say some of the clients in their 70s and 80s, still active, playing tennis, driving, but coming in regularly for facials, wearing minimal makeup. They were radiant, and that radiance was coming from the inside out.
Do you know it's funny? It's only been in the last couple of years that I have been willing to go out without makeup. It's something I don't know if it's because 'cause I'm a girl of the '80s where we did the whole hair and makeup
Oh,
and all
yeah.
that stuff that we did, because they say that generation of your 20s is what kind of impacts you and your look for your whole life, not that you don't change, but it's what you kinda relate to because it was and for most people, was the best years, but I would argue mine have gotten better every 10 years. I'm living
Mhm.
my best life right now. But it's interesting. I am comfortable enough to go out without makeup now. And it's something we may do a no makeup episode one time. And
I
I
think
think
we
that would
should.
be fun. That would be
Yeah.
fun. But I have a friend I want to tell you about. His name is Alan Kinder. He lives in Gainesville. He's a D Day veteran. He turned 100 last January.
Wow.
And his goal was to get to be 100 so that he could go. He went on a bunch of things. He was the grand marshal at the Memorial Day parade up in Washington, D.C., and he's been on trips to Normandy and all that kind of stuff. And he still lives independently. Uh, he looks great. He's in good shape. He does this sort of core exercise every time he stands up. I would say there are times when he uses a cane. There are times when he went on this D-Day trip, they required that everybody be in a wheelchair because they didn't want to run into any problems with all these 100-year-old people.
Right.
But he's so amazing. And he said to me recently, he said, uh, I know a lot of people have been through a lot of loss. I've been through a lot of loss. He's lost his wife. He's lost his daughter. He still has a son-in-law and a grandson and a great-grandson. But he says, I'm living my best life. He's 100 years old. He's saying, I'm living my best life.
What a goal. And that while you were talking about him, it made me think about myself and about a lot of us who I think that, this is a wellness podcast, right? We are here to help you on your journey to really think about your health. And while you were talking about that, I thought, how much time do we put into how we look when are we really putting that kind of time into how we feel, what we're doing to feel good, and how we're going to take care of our bodies as a whole to be that old? And I think that genetics, like you said, genetics play a huge role. We all age differently a lot of times based on our family history. You can look at your mom, or your grandma. Mine is a little different. My situation, I had factors, lifestyle has a lot to do with it. It kind of overrides genetics in some aspects. My grandparents drank a lot of alcohol and smoked a lot of cigarettes.
As that whole generation did.
And that will age you. And therefore, they died early. My grandmother died in her 60s, and my grandfather died in his 70s, but he was not a healthy 70. And I don't believe in hitting a number. I think you need to be optimal in your lifestyle and your living, moving around, independence, to actually call it living in an optimal way. So, my mother's 82. She's doing great. So I think that, although you might be born with a loaded gun, it's your lifestyle that does pull the trigger. And as we talk about anti-aging, for women, I think we face the biggest amounts of pressure because you had said earlier before we were filming, men think they always look good. I think that was great.
It's true. It's very true.
But I did figure out that they do have a trick. They just didn't know they had a trick. So the act of shaving, so what that does is it turns over the skin cells every time they go to shave. And men sometimes shave every single day.
Yes.
So when you turn over the dead skin cells on your face, it does allow for more collagen growth. So collagen growth equals less wrinkles. And you know how we would always get saucy with the men as they got older? It's like you get your salt and pepper hair and you age and you get hotter. And women, we get salt and pepper hair and we just get old. No one says, "Ooh, love that salt and pepper hair." I mean, if you do, write in. I'd love to know who you are. But,
So my mom had one of those fabulous streaks in her hair. I do not have that kind of gray hair. If I had that kind of streak, I might do it because I mean, I might get rid of the color and just do the streak because it looked fabulous on her. And it's so funny. Her whole family, all her siblings and her, went to a funeral. Of course, that's where you get together as people get older. And they all had that same head of hair. It was really hysterical.
that's
It was
amazing.
very genetic. Okay. I have more like my dad, where it's like all over, you know, it's nice to call it salt and pepper, it's really not that. But it's okay because, if you are not afraid of aging, which I'm not afraid of aging. I wanna do as well as I can with what I have for as long as I can, but I'm not afraid of aging. But say a client's coming to you for the first time,
Right.
and what are the things you look at? If someone came to you and said, "I just wanna be the best I can be," what's the process you go through?
Basically, at the spa, the estheticians that work there all agree with the mission of the spa, which is to educate. So they all know that you need to inside out healthcare. Anyone that comes in, right? Inside out skincare. We're going to start there. And we're going to assess the skin. Usually, we ask people to start with a bespoke facial, which is one that is really giving you time with an expert to let them assess your skin, see what's going on. You may think you need one thing, and then an esthetician will look at your skin more deeply and see that you might need something else. So that's where our girls are directed. That's our wheelhouse. And to provide you with nutritional recommendations relative to supporting your liver, what you'll also get great benefits in your eyes, your hair, your nails. And so that's why we have a natural pharmacy in the spa, because it's not just our own skincare line that we own as owners, but we have a variety of different nutritionals in there to help support all of those things. But I have to say, I am not saying that doing whatever it takes for you to look in the mirror and feel good about yourself is a bad thing. Because mental health, which will be another episode that will talk about steps and support and nutritionals and trauma resolution, all of that will be in the next support. But people have to feel good when they see what they see in the mirror. It's harder to do that now because, as I was talking earlier, with the selfie generation, we're seeing ourselves up closer than we ever
A
have.
lot more.
No one. I got rid of all of my mirrors that were like 3 times magnification. I decided I would rather somebody tell me that I haven't put my eye makeup on right than actually look at my eyes that close. No one does that. No one looks at you that close. I actually bought a pair of glasses that had the eye thing here and nothing here. So you could put your makeup on and then you could flop that thing over and put it on your other eye if you couldn't see. So I'm using that instead of the magnifying mirror. We don't need to do anything else that will cause us to feel bad about ourselves.
So we talked a lot about how people look and what is that separation between looking good and feeling
Feeling
good.
good.
It's curious to me, what I'm noticing because I've taken care of several old people in my family,
Mhm.
and it's the whole movement strength issue. Because I think the kind of number one thing, yes, you want your face to look good as possible. Because I do think girls, we like to look as good as we can. But the number one thing I see is lack of strength, lack of mobility. That's the thing you've got to save in order to age well, I think.
I agree. I've joked with a lot of people about putting too much into how you look and putting too much time and energy into your face by saying, well, you're going to look really good in that coffin if you don't start eating better.
Nobody looks good in a coffin.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, so my point was You're talking to a fitness professional. I can say I am a fitness professional. I've done it for a very long time. I worked with children, with seniors, with everybody in between, to help them to have a better, more functional body. And the body works as a whole. So you can't just train your legs, guys. You got to train more than just the legs. But the whole body functional movement is life. I just texted my mom that this morning. Movement is life. I gave her my recumbent bike and told her, even if she's sitting watching the TV, to just pedal. She's 82. And the older we get, the more important. A lot of women, as they age, they stop lifting things that are heavy. And that's when you actually have to lift the heavier things. Do it with control, do it with guidance, even. But it is time when you're in your 40s and 50s to start actually doing things where you are lifting things heavy and you're challenging your muscle, which will then protect your bones. Anti aging isn't just how you look in the face, it's the whole body.
It's funny, a lot of people in our generation have those masters on the main, okay? And I still have my master upstairs and my master bedroom because I want to climb those stairs every day. And when
That's
I
great.
do my laundry, I try to incorporate, I don't do strength training per se, and when I need to. In fact, that's on the bucket list to keep
Yes,
working
ma'am.
on. But I make sure that I lift heavy things. I take the laundry downstairs. I have this basket that I take the laundry downstairs with.
Hmm.
Then I bring it back upstairs to put it away. I make sure that if something needs to be lifted to go over to the shop or to go over, we live on it's not a huge piece of property, but a little piece of property. And I make it a point to walk to the mailbox, to incorporate movement and lifting into my life because I don't like to sweat. Okay, I'll admit that. You've trained me before, I don't like to sweat. And so, but I do want to make sure I get the movement in every day. I do want to make sure I'm lifting things. I'm moving things from one place to another. And my husband's so sweet. He likes to chime in and say, "Well, I'll help you with that." And I go, "No, I don't want you to help me." Because if I get to the point where I can't lift things and do things,
Right.
then you're just going backwards because there's a certain amount of weakness that comes along with age. I mean, you're just not going to be as strong as you were when you were 20. That's just the way it is because the hormones are different. And we'll talk, that'll be another issue we'll talk about at some point in time. Hormones are different, all that kind of stuff is different. But I think that you can change the direction of your life. I did it and
Absolutely.
I feel better at 65 than I did at 45.
And that is why we're doing this podcast.
Yes.
It's never too late to start. And, we talked about it earlier too. Consistency is everything. Just be consistent. Now, I would say as a personal trainer or as a fitness professional, you need to take some conscious movement and you need to actually overload the muscle in a way that's a little bit more measured. But the fact that you're mobile and you're moving is 100% the best starting point you can have. And getting some cardiovascular exercise. That's something we tend to forget about as well. And sometimes the strength training, even 15 minutes of it, will allow you to get your heart rate up, which will then allow you to get the cardiovascular work in while you're strength training. And we can talk about some program design relative to that. But a lot of people, I know you and I, have very limited time, right? So, one of my favorite workouts that I used to do that was one of the favorites here in Gainesville was a 30-minute butts and guts. It really was a total body workout with the exercise bands. So there's an event that Women's Source is putting on in Gainesville in June. I can't remember the day. I think it's the 17th. It's a Saturday up at our green space up there in the downtown area. And I'm going to be on the stage. They've given me the stage. Dangerous. They didn't know what they were doing, but they've given me the stage for just a few minutes. And I'm going to take those exercise bands and show everybody how to do a 30-minute full body workout, which you can do when you're traveling. You can do it at home. You can do half of it if you need, make it 15 minutes, and then do the other half the next day. So these are some tips and things I'm going to do at that particular event. It's a wellness event for the community. I hope everybody that may be listening to this looks for it online and goes out to this event. It'll be for children and for adults, but this is something I have a passion for. It's an educational process. We all think we know what we're doing, And it's true as long as you're doing something right. If you're active.
And wherever you're watching this, there'll be these kinds of health meetings, events all around. So when you see this event will already be over.
Yes.
But there's a lot of opportunities for you to be a part of events like that. And I think getting together with other women, with other people is really important in this process that we're putting
Yep.
together. And I think exercise is a huge part of that. I think a lot of us thought we were moving around enough during the day. I know my mom, and she lived to be 88, so I can't say she did anything wrong, okay?
Right.
But she thought, Martha, I move all day in my job. Why do I need to come home and exercise too? And so she sort of had that mindset,
Right.
but she did always move all day in her
And she
job,
lived to
and
be
so she
88.
did. And she lived to be 88, so she was doing okay.
I mean, there's no blanket prescription for a human body. And I mean that on every sense of the term. Human bodies differ so very, very much that you can't assume one thing that works for one person is going to work for another. So it's just finding what works for you that
So
that is the thing.
I have another question about
Mhm.
that because, and I think people think about this, that if you get these recommendations all the time, this many minutes, 10,000 steps, 8,000 steps, whatever you want to do, what are your thoughts? Because I think we overwhelm
We
people
do.
with
Oh my
things that they
gosh.
don't think they can accomplish. And my view has always been just get up and start moving. Go as far as you can. Now, I did buy a rowing machine for my office because I found that was something I would do for 10 or 15 minutes. I could do it in between projects when I'm working in my office.
Perfect.
It's there, and I don't use it for a clothes hanger. Okay, I know a lot of people use their exercise equipment for a clothes hanger. I used to be one of those people, but now I said, okay, what is a machine? And I got a gym membership for a year, okay, to kind of find out what would work best for me after I got my first knee replacement. And then at the end, I didn't have the extra time to take clothes and change clothes and do this. I mean, it was really, I didn't have a couple hours in my day. To do it right, it was a couple hours in your
Yeah,
day to do the gym right.
definitely.
But what the gym taught me was what would be the machine I would use
Right.
and actually get benefit from. And I decided on the rowing machine because it's a full body workout. And in 15 or 20 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week, I'm getting a good workout
That's
all
perfect.
throughout my body. And I can feel it in all the places you need to feel it in. That's what I use
That
that
is a
for.
good test. Do you feel it?
Yes.
But, for me, I was blessed, and I say blessed because my genetic history handed me down quite the load of gun. So those genetics, genetic high cholesterol, etc., scripted my life in a way that I knew as I was getting older that I needed to do something to work harder than others, possibly, to keep that optimal door open, right? Longevity door, we'll call it. There's podcasts all over the place on longevity hacks and things to do. It's mind numbing how much information is out there. But for me, what I did is I thought, okay, I'm going to become a personal trainer. I'm going to exercise and I'm going to make it something I do for a living so that I am always going to do it. And so that's what I did. And it has kept me to a point where I have, numbers on labs that doctors look at and go, eek. But I feel like the things that I've done with my life were what I needed to do, which was really more thoughtful exercise, a lot more mind care when it comes to mind, body, and soul, a lot more meditation, breath work, and strength training so that I had to counteract really negative genetic predispositions. Does that make sense? So I personally had to do a lot more work. But genetically, if somebody has the blessing of being able to just comfortably move through their life, eat smart. One of the things that kept me in business with my clients when I was training was I was the 80/20 girl. I felt like if you lived and made 80% of your choices every day, smart. If you stayed on the smart side of the scale, then that 20%, if you want that glass of wine, if you want the cheesecake, if you want to go out with your grandchildren and have a fast food meal, whatever that may be, if it's only 20% of your pie, then nothing in moderation is going to kill you at that point. And I live my life that way. so that I can find joy in my day-to-day life, you know?
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest lessons I learned when I went through my weight loss journey is I got rid of sugar, which was really hard to do because we had, sugar in everything. And if you really want to have as little sugar, I'm not saying no sugar. I
Right.
don't say no to anything if you want to know the truth. Not completely
That's
no, not
good. I think
banning
that's
it.
great. You don't feel
I got rid of sugar. I stopped with soft drinks. And even because for years I couldn't get my head around that a 0-calorie drink was bad for you, but it was all the other stuff that was in there. And
yay.
and so I got my head around that. And then I drink a lot of water. The biggest change I made is I eat dinner early
Yes.
unless it's date night or we're going out with friends. So that's the 20%,
20%.
So I'm a little hungry when I go to bed, but if I want something, I eat it. I just don't eat very much of it. And I used this thing where, the plates in the 1970s were like this big, the dinner plate. Now they're like this big, the dinner plate. And so we like to fill our plate, right? That's what Americans do. I have these students that have stayed with me, these exchange students through Rotary Club that I'm
Right.
involved in. And that's the thing they're the most worried about coming to America is gaining weight because they see us as fat.
We
Okay.
are on a
Yeah, they see
world
us as all
level.
fat. So they don't want to gain weight. But it's really just kind of it's like my mother told me when I was young, everything in moderation.
Right.
You just got to be everything in moderation. If you move, you're everything in moderation, you moisturize,
Right.
you're going to do okay. Now, there's certain genetic things you can't get around, but the things you can get around, my husband likes to call it eating, drinking, and smoking. He always said with his patients that if they started eating right, quit drinking, and quit smoking, he'd have nothing to do. And so it's the things we do to
That's so
ourselves,
true.
the things we do to ourselves.
And those are things we can control at 100%. It just my philosophy for Terrell, for me, is to focus on the things I can change. I control the things I can control. The things that are outside of my control, I let it go. Politics is one of them. That's why you're my very best friend, because you listen to it. It's your job. So if I need to know something about politics,
She calls me.
yeah, she'll tell me. So I don't have to listen to the news and do all of the above. I try to stay up on community things that are going on so that I can have an educated conversation. But the things that I control are the things that come out of my mouth as much as the things that go in my mouth. And that's something that this country, more than anywhere, I think right now needs to really get good at, is really watching the things that are coming out of their mouth. I think it was even a biblical statement where the concerns were more what went out of the mouth that came in the mouth. And we will have some spiritual conversation too as we go along. But, on an anti-aging thought process and vein, being someone turning 60 in January, do I have lines around my mouth? Yes. Do I have wrinkles on my face that weren't there 10 years ago? Absolutely. Am I tempting to use the AI features for the different devices that can make you look a lot younger? What are those called? Filters? Oh my goodness. So, yeah, I'm tempted to do all that, but I think what that does, it actually hurts your heart in the long run. Because if you start using, this is just me, guys, but if you use a lot of filters and you're used to seeing yourself that way, and then when you look in the mirror and that's not what you're seeing, I think that's hard on your heart. And really, age is wisdom, and wisdom is a wonderful thing. And if we can just learn to show our grandchildren and our children that aging is a process of being wise, and aging gracefully is actually more important than how you age. And I think if we can begin to do that and to help take the pressure off of women, especially on how they look, and learn to embrace themselves with or without makeup, with or without filters,
Well, and I
I
want
think
to
we've
say
done something.
to women too is that we're our own worst enemies. We're
Yeah.
hard on each other. We should be better friends to each other. And I think that, and it's not just men don't do this. It's just that we need to understand. I mean, my father-in-law is in an assisted living facility right now. There's about 100 people there, and I think only about 15 of them are men. So we're going to have a lot of women here at the end,
Yeah.
and we need to get along, regardless of how old you are.
That's very, very true. So I think that is something that we can think about ending this particular episode with, was just giving people the concept
Grace.
and the grace and the understanding that it's okay to get older. It's a blessing to get older. Ask any one of those parents who lost their child at a young age. We are blessed to be the ages we are. Would there be a few things we'd like to do to look better in the mirror? Sure. Don't make that a pressure. If you want to do that, do that. But start by treating your body better and eating healthy, moving, doing the things that will actually do the job. And then if you got to accept a few wrinkles, then do that, right? Because we're wise women. We've lived many decades at this point. So why not embrace that and feel good about the aging process?
There was an old song that George Burns did years ago. George Burns was the comedian that had been around forever and ever. He started out in vaudeville, and his wife's name was Gracie. But they did this thing where he had this song, I Wish I Was 18 Again. And I think a lot of people have said, something like, if I knew then what I know now, I would have been a lot happier. I remember going to my 20-year high school reunion, and all these people were coming up and telling me, how much they liked me and how great I was. And I looked at my picture, the one you put there, and I was like, I didn't look that bad. I looked pretty good. And I'm thinking to myself, I wasted my teenage years thinking I wasn't enough. I didn't, and I was like, if I had known then these kids liked me so much, I would have had a much better
More
time
fun.
in high
Yeah.
school than I did. But everything happens for a reason, for sure.
That's true.
And I think that it's an attitude too. You've got to look at your life and be blessed every day. Be thankful for a day. My husband and I get up every morning and say, thank you, Lord, for another day. He's a cancer survivor, and you just have to be that way. And I know some people have an easier time with that than other people do. But if that's your goal, I think you can make your life better.
I agree, Martha. And I think aging gracefully should be something that we see out there in the marketing more and more, right? Helping people to age gracefully. TMI with Teryl and Martha, we're here to help you do that. We're here to help you learn how to embrace your life, how to act with confidence and gain more information. So thank you for joining us on TMI, where wellness deserves a little oversharing.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe so you can find out when our next episode is. And to find out what we'll be talking about next, follow our social media. We love you to be a part of the program.